Director of Community Engagement for the Austin Transit Partnership. We know you all have lots of other obligations and things to do, and we really appreciate you spending your valuable time with us tonight. Our workshop is scheduled to end at 7 p.m., but we can extend it to 7:30 to provide you with plenty of time for input. Next slide, please. So here's what we're going to cover at tonight's workshop. We'll have a brief overview of Project Connect and where we are today. Then we'll look at the context of the North Lamar Transit Center area. We'll talk about station design considerations. And then we'll have a group activity to map the station area around the North Lamar Transit Center. And then we'll look at some preliminary options for connecting people to the rail and bus services in the area. And then we're going to have breakout groups for feedback and discussion. That's the fun stuff. And then we'll talk about next steps. Next slide. Again, we want to welcome you to the North Lamar Transit Center Community Design Workshop tonight. We'll be exploring how to integrate a new orange and blue line light rail station into the area around the North Lamar Transit Center so that customers can easily move between bus and rail services. The Transit Center is home to a number of Metro bus routes, as well as the Metro Rapid 801 route. Those of you who use the Transit Center know that the area is not exactly the most pedestrian-friendly location. I mean, you've got North Lamar on one side, you've got US 183 on the other, both with a constant flow of very high-speed traffic, right? So the new rail lines present a great opportunity for us to reimagine the Transit Center area, multimodal transit hub. Next slide. Tonight's workshop is also a meeting of the North Lamar Working Group. If you're not familiar with Project Connect working groups, these groups are an opportunity for you to provide neighborhood level feedback along different sections of the orange and blue line light rail lines. As you can imagine, constructing a massive new light rail system in a fully developed city like Austin that wasn't designed for transit presents some really tough design challenges. So these working groups invite you to help us troubleshoot those challenges and find solutions that reflect your needs and your values. Next slide. Before I introduce our speakers, I want to share a little bit of logistical information. We're going to keep everybody muted and keep the chat feature disabled just for this introductory presentation until we get to the fun part, the engagement activities and the breakout groups. If you're participating in Spanish, you should be hearing live Spanish translations at this time. If you'd like to listen to this meeting in Spanish, please click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and select the Spanish language option. Si gusta tener interpretación viva en español, por favor haga clic en el botón interpretación en la parte baja de su pantalla y seleccione español. We also have translation services in Vietnamese tonight, so you can choose that same option with the button and choose the Vietnamese language. We have live closed captioning available in English as well. You can turn on this feature by clicking the CC button in the Zoom meeting toolbar, which is located in the bottom middle of your screen. And now I'd like to take a moment to recognize a few people who have joined us this evening. I believe we have Stephanie Trin, Chief of Staff for Councilmember Greg Cassar, District 4 office. Stephanie, are you with us? If so, can you turn on your camera and just say hello? All right, I don't see Stephanie, but I do see Louisa Bringsmaid, who is, hi Louisa, with Leslie Poole's office, District 7. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Louisa. We really appreciate you being here tonight. And then our speakers tonight are Peter Mullen, Chief of Architecture for the Austin Transit Partnership. Peter, say hello. And Jana McCann with McCann Adams Studio. Jana, say hello. All right. All right. Thanks for joining us, speakers, and we'll move on to the next slide. So we always like to begin these community meetings with a brief overview on Project Connect, because some of you might be joining the conversation for the first time. Others might just need a little bit of a refresher. So bear with us while we go through that. Next slide, please. So Project Connect is a transit expansion plan. It includes a new light rail system, a downtown transit tunnel, an expanded bus system with more Metro Rapid service, Metro Express, and on-demand circulators, which we call pickup. And a transition to an all-electric fleet so that all vehicles, including buses, will not use gas and be more friendly to our environment. Next slide. Just a reminder that this workshop is actually part of our North Lamar working group. And as a member of this working group, you get to meet with the project team, give us feedback, help the design team understand how Project Connect can best serve you. So your feedback will be used throughout the process of our environmental study and through project development. Next slide. Here you can see that there's a breakdown of all the Project Connect working groups along the two lines, the orange and the blue line. And anyone is welcome to participate in any and all of these groups. And you can join at any time. You don't have to have been part of the group from the beginning. We welcome you anytime you want to join. Next slide. We also want to invite you to another community feedback opportunity that's happening next week. We'll be discussing equitable transit-oriented development, or ETOD. So we'll be asking for your views on how to best preserve affordable housing at stations like the one at the North Lamar Transit Center, how we can support small businesses, create job opportunities, create wonderful public spaces around the new Project Connect stations, and more. So we hope you'll join us online next week. There will be 2 opportunities to participate. Some of you may rather participate in the evening, so we're going to do one on Tuesday, November 16th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And there'll be a daytime opportunity as well, Wednesday, November 17th at 11:30 a.m. And you can sign up for these at projectconnect.com/get involved. We hope to see you there. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the North Lamar Transit Center is ripe for an upgrade. And it's one of the stations the ETOD study is going to be looking at. So what we learn from you will help us identify affordable housing options, develop a plan for better access, mobility, improve transit center amenities and services, identify strategies to reduce barriers to low-income housing, and improve service reliability overall. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to discuss the area around the new light rail station at the North Lamar Transit Center. And we're going to map out places in the area that are important to you. Next, we're going to look at some options for the design of the light rail station itself and get your feedback. As a reminder, there are 3 different transit services that are going to converge on this station. We're going to have the orange line light rail service, the blue line, which will operate on the same track. We'll have Metro Rapid 801 service and a number of local Metro bus services as well. Next slide. So your feedback today comes at a very key point in the development of the orange and blue lines. As you can see, we are in the critical early design stage, just past 15% design, and in the midst of our federally mandated environmental impact study, which is also known as NEPA. NEPA stands for the National Environmental Policy Act. Next slide. Your feedback is going to be incorporated in the next phase of the program. That includes the draft environmental impact statement, which is the next phase of the NEPA process, and also 30% design and cost estimates for the projects. Next slide. So I just want to go over the goals that we'd like to accomplish with tonight's workshop, and they are the following. We'd like to map the station area And that's an opportunity for the Project Connect team to learn from you about the area around the station and what's important to you. And then we'd like to present you with some station connection options. Our Project Connect team is going to walk you through some of these preliminary ideas for how people might connect from one service to another. And then finally, we want to get your feedback and have a real robust discussion to talk about the different connection options and find out what you think about those options. So now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jana McCann, who's going to take us on a deeper dive into the context of the North Lamar Transit Center station. Take it away, Jana.
Thanks, Jackie. And this will be deep, everyone. This image that you see here is an aerial photo or sort of a bird's eye view of the North Lamar Transit Center. It actually opened in 1986 as a park and ride station because it was very well located at the intersection of two major highways, 183 on the left bottom corner of your screen and North Lamar Boulevard on the right side. And this view is looking toward the northwest area. And just for everybody's information, 183 in this area kind of splits its personality to the left or to the west. It's called Research Boulevard. And to the east, it can be called Anderson Lane. But I think a lot of you are very familiar with this site. And then North Lamar. So these are two very major roadways. And as Jackie said, they present some challenges for pedestrians and cyclists. And both facilities or roadways are owned and operated by TxDOT. The presence of this facility was the whole reason for selecting the location for the rail platform, which you see dashed in the center of North Lamar Boulevard, in the median, which is right now is just sort of a green divider between lanes of traffic moving north and south quite rapidly. So recently, this North Lamar Transit Center, which we're abbreviating throughout as NLTC, has gone through a major refurbishment. And you can see on the upper right an image of it in its sort of refurbished state, which included rehabilitating this really cool space frame canopy structure and providing more lighting. Some repairs were done, more seating was added, more shade structures were added. So this facility, again, is the reason why we're putting the platform where we are, the rail platform, so that we can make easy connections from that rail platform over to this transit center, where then people can transfer easily to a number of bus routes, which will likely expand in the future. So the facility, while it opened in 1986, just went through a refurbishment. It includes park and ride spaces for the public that are about 260, 270 spaces, and it's a big property. So what you see mostly is a large parking lot. I think the hope is that, there's a wonderful opportunity here to really integrate the rail service with bus services and other passenger amenities. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just again, sort of reminder, what you're seeing on the right-hand side is a blow up and focus in where the red circle is of where the North Lamar Transit Center is located today, and how it really is a major nexus for Capital Metro bus service already. And you see that there's, you can connect to two existing on-street routes, the famous route number 1, a local route on North Lamar, and Route 801, which is a rapid bus route. And then coming into the transit center, which we'll see a little more clearly in the next slides, are 3 different local routes that move into the park and ride and come and land right next to that canopy that we just saw, and allow passengers to transfer from any of one route to the next, or to the routes that are located on the North Lamar frontage road. So you see that some of the pink lines are 15-minute, what we call headways, or they're coming and serving the station, the bus stations at 15-minute intervals, while the green lines that you're seeing, the local routes, are coming in at roughly 30-minute intervals. Can go to the next, please. So this is a really important moment in the design of the system, because it is such an important nexus, and the rail will be bringing 2 lines of service, both the blue line and actually the interim, it will become the interim endpoint of the orange line. So you can see the dashed lines extending, the orange dotted lines going north, so that in a future phase will allow the orange line to be extended northwards. But really the whole opportunity is to really create this as an integrated, holistic system at this point on North Lamar. You also see directly south of this is the Crestview station. And what is being shown and circling around is the Crestview station, which is roughly a mile from the North Lamar Transit Center. And those shaded circles are representing a 1/2 mile radius. So with the thought that a 1/2 mile is the distance that people would walk or bike to get to a station. So we have the sort of ideal where we have those 2 radius points touching each other. So today, what we're going to be looking at and focusing on is really that whole area north of 183, and really the surrounding area of the North Lamar Transit Center. There's going to be another community design workshop in the next couple of months that will really focus on the Crestview station, which is another really important point in the transit map, as you can see above, where red line service will also be offered. So it's the intersection of 3 different passenger rail lines. We can go to the next. So this is a view, and I've spun you around. We're looking toward the downtown or south down North Lamar Boulevard. And so on your lower right, you're seeing the North Lamar Transit Center, and you're primarily seeing the parking area for the park and ride in the right bottom. And you can see that there's a multifamily or apartments on the left-hand side of the screen, the Oaks on Lamar. And you're really surrounded by some fairly a lot of non-residential uses in the area, and kind of a large, what we call block pattern. So it kind of presents some difficulties, and you see North Lamar there, and it's where it actually swoops under 183 in an underpass situation. So some challenges, as Jackie mentioned, in terms of pedestrian access across these major highways. You can go to the next. So filled in here, you see in the red lines with the directional lines, you see the bus routes and how they work. And just want to bring your attention to the line that comes in to the North Lamar Transit Center. And you see the red circular icons, which represent where the buses would stop. You see also a bus stops on North Lamar on either side of the very wide right-of-way of North Lamar. And in the center, you see a blue circular icon that signifies the rail platform there. And you can see sort of that it's a shared platform between the blue and the orange lines there. So we're going to have fairly frequent service there, headways. So you'll see that what we're trying to solve for and need your help with is how to connect this center platform, which is in the middle of this median, to the bus services and the North Lamar Transit Center. Can go to the next. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Peter Mullen to think about station design considerations. Peter?
Thank you, Jana. Appreciate it. So I'm just going to talk about some of the themes or the considerations that we have been considering when we think about the design and how to accomplish many of the objectives that Jana talked about in terms of connecting the new light rail platforms to the existing bus services and other services all together as part of the transit center. And most important of all is to create a safe and accessible environment for people of all abilities. And this is something that guides us throughout our entire design process, everywhere, not just here. It's particularly important here. But if we design for people with disabilities and people who might have mobility challenges, then we will be effectively designing for everyone. And so that guides all of our decision making. Next. When we think about the station design, there are a series of criteria or themes that we consider. And these range from ease of travel and accessibility to sustainability, to cost consideration, to operations considerations. All of these considerations have to be considered together. And so we have this very holistic approach towards design. Go to the next. But in any station, there are a few that really sort of come to the surface as priorities. And so for the North Lamar Transit Center station, there are three that we're really focused on and want to make sure that we consider as part of this workshop tonight. The first is ease of travel and accessibility. And I think we'll see as we start to look at different design options, how certain options present certain opportunities. And we want to get your feedback on that. What's going to be the easiest way to connect from local bus service to light rail, or from the park and ride to light rail, et cetera. The second is the user experience. We know that this is not just about moving people. This is about moving people in a way that enhances that experience. And so how do we make that the experience of transit as pleasurable and efficient as possible? And the third are what we call right-of-way constraints. So the right-of-way is essentially the street, right? The area that's not owned by private landholders. But even the right-of-way has other needs that we have to consider. The needs of traffic flow and automobile use and utilities. And so we have to consider those and work around those as well. Next. So this idea about creating seamless transfers, or our goal is to reduce the amount of friction or challenge in making those transfers. So, and those transfers are between the light rail, which is in the platform in the center of the roadway, bus routes, which are both on the frontage road, as well as in the parking lot area of the transit center. Bike facilities. This is a great place for cyclists who are coming to the station to get to other parts of the city from their local neighborhood. How do we make the transfers between cyclists and bike paths and these other transit modes as easy as possible, and the park and ride as well. You know, we know that there will always be a regional component to this. We can imagine people who are driving from places where transit is less accessible to this location to then access light rail or local bus service to get to parts of the city. How do we make all of those facilities feel like one unified transit center, integrated transit center, where those transfers can be made easily and quickly? That's really the objective here, and where we need your help as users of transit. Next. One of the ways in which we can do that is to improve the user amenities, you know, to make the use of those facilities, again, as pleasurable as possible. So some of the things we'll be considering are seating, public restrooms, information and wayfinding, signage, you know, facilities for public safety. All those different amenities have to be located in various locations within this larger area to make that experience as user-friendly as possible. And we need your help in understanding what's going to do that most effectively. Next. So this is a view looking north from North Lamar Boulevard. And you can see that the roadway here is depressed. It's lower than the frontage roads. This is just north of 183. And the roadway is lowered, and the frontage roads are on that upper level up above, basically where that arrow says North Lamar Transit Center. That's also where the southbound frontage road is located. And so you can see there is this grade difference, this height difference between the roadway where the light rail station will be located, again, in the center of this roadway, and the pedestrian facilities and the transit center facilities that are up above. So one of the challenges is, how do we manage that grade differential? And you'll see some different ways to approach that. Next. This is also an area where, you know, we've had some safety issues, and that have resulted in really unfortunate crashes and collisions involving both motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. So really, safety is always our number one priority. So the question is, how do we use design and the design of the connections between these different transit modes and to pedestrian sidewalks and bike lanes, et cetera? How do we design those in a way to make those movements as safe as possible and reduce the number of incidents that we have in this area? Next. The other issue, and part of the reason why we want to do this mapping exercise is to get your help in understanding these pathways. But one of the challenges, because of some of the roadway configurations in this area, is that the pedestrian connectivity from the neighborhood to the transit center is longer than ideal. And so the question is, how do we facilitate those movements and those connections to make access to the transit center easier for the local neighborhood? So your knowledge of the neighborhood is really going to be critical to help us improve those connections through a variety of different means, whether it's sidewalks or potentially bike lanes or additional metro bike facilities or whatever. Next. So now I'm going to turn it over to Brianna, and she's going to walk us through this interactive mapping activity. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about design options.
Hey everyone, Brianna here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I have a quick mapping activity that we'd like to run through with you. This will be about 20 minutes, and you have the option to join us on your computer at this website. Lonnie, if you don't mind copying and pasting the public input website into the chat feature. And Lonnie, if you also don't mind enabling the chat feature for this period of the meeting. So if you don't want to join us virtually at this link, you can also use your chat platform to provide us answers. So I'm going to have a couple of questions for you guys, and you'll be able to respond in the chat if you'd like to participate. And we really just see this as an opportunity to, first of all, set the stage and the tone for what we're getting at here with pedestrian and bicyclist and car access to this area. But also, we're really interested in learning from you guys of how you use the site. So again, take a second to click the link provided in the chat, and it might take a minute for you to load on your screen. Or again, just hang tight and we will activate the chat portion of the Zoom platform. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and actually jumping over to the web platform. But what we'll be doing is we'll be asking a couple questions. One, we're going to be asking, where is your starting point when traveling to this area? And so it might be your house, or it might be your place of employment, or it might be your car that you park at North Lamar Transit Center. We'd love that information. And for privacy purposes, feel free to kind of become a little vague in your response. Like, I'm coming from my house and it is located at this intersection. I'm going to have a team behind the scenes reviewing your comments in the chat, and they're going to be able to pull up Google Maps and kind of coordinate behind the scenes on how to insert your pins on the map for you guys. The second question I'm going to be asking are, what are key destinations you travel to in this area? So this may be, again, a place of employment. Maybe it's a shopping center. Maybe you have a storage unit at some storage facilities, and maybe it's the transit center. And so we really want to know where you're coming from, where you're going to, and honestly, how are you getting there? Are you getting there by foot, by bike? Are you experiencing any issues while you're accessing these sites? Those are the types of information that I'm going to be kind of drawing out over the next 20 minutes. So if you're sharing in the chat just a few items of housekeeping, if you can please include what type of pin it is. So is it an origin or a destination? And if you can also provide some information on where it's located. So if you just say my house, period, we will not know where that is. So if you want to say my house, which is vaguely located in this neighborhood like Georgian Acres, that'll provide us enough information to drop a pin for you. And if you are using the platform, you can place up to 15 pins. So let me jump to our interactive activity. So if you're joining us on this platform, you'll come to this page, which is through the Cap Metro Project Connect website. And if you scroll down, you'll see this dark outline. We are really interested in understanding pins that can be dropped within this area. So I'm going to just zoom in really quick. So you can see we've allowed pins to drop south of 183. And that's going to be really interesting if you have to cross 183 to access the North Lamar Transit Center, or somewhere else that you're crossing 183 to get to a destination further north. You can see that we've also extended this area, this focus area, all the way to I-35. And this captures the Georgian Acres neighborhood, which we think is a community that will be using this site very much. And we're really interested in hearing from you guys as residents, or maybe if you have a place of employment in this area. You can see that we have extended this focus area all the way up to Runberg Lane and all the way across to the street that just disappeared, but basically over by the Target, over at 183. And what this really does is that we're interested in capturing, again, key destinations or starting points within this area. And some other just orienting features, as you can see, we've included the existing red line commuter rail. We've included it actually is not really showing up really well, but there is the orange line, there it is. And this will be the orange and blue line initial investment right here. We've also included the purple line is high capacity transit. And so what I'm going to be doing now is going to be refreshing my page and seeing if there's any information. Okay, great. We're already starting to get some information. So I'm going to zoom into some of these, but first I want to ask you guys some questions. So again, we're really trying to understand how to best connect residents of the surrounding neighborhoods by bus and rail routes coming through the transit center. So how can we make sure that the experiences of those transferring in this area are positive? Now, you may not identify as someone who is using the transit center, but lives in this neighborhood or works in this neighborhood. And we're still really interested in getting a sense of where you're coming from and where you're going to. So my first question for you, tell us where your starting point is if you're going to the North Lamar Transit Center, and tell us where you're coming from as your origin of destination. So are you taking a bus to the transit center? Are you walking? Are you driving? This will be really interesting to us because some of our design interventions we're going to be showing you guys in a couple of slides are to try to solve some of these issues that we know are a challenge in the area. So I'm going to click around and see what we've got. So someone put an origin here. I'm not able to open the comment, but that's okay. We also have a house in the Wooten neighborhood, so thank you for whoever dropped that. And we got a comment about the boundary. That's fine. Thank you so much. But that's good to know that we've got some participants this evening that are coming from the Wooten neighborhood. I'm going to refresh my screen to see if we're getting any more comments. And so I'm interested to know, if you're a resident within this neighborhood and you're walking to the transit center or a place of employment or a shopping center, let us know a route that you're taking and how do you feel about that route? Maybe you're leaving your work at a restaurant in this neighborhood and you have to walk to the transit center or another bus stop in the area to go home. We'd be interested in knowing that as well. So I see a key destination here. Oh, great. We have a comment about that the Georgian Acres has affordable housing packed full of families. It's really helpful to add more, or it's not really helpful to add more. Adding childcare, adding commerce, that would be great. Yeah, let us know if there's any specific commerce that you're interested in seeing. Is it retail? Is it restaurants? We'd be really interested in learning about that. Okay, so I see someone in here has identified an opportunity for future mixed-use development. And so they're implying that this could be a site of a key destination in the future. That's really interesting because we know that people may be crossing from the transit center or the future station platform. They'd be crossing 183 to get to a potential redevelopment site. That's very helpful.
Brianna,
so I'm gonna, yes.
Just a comment, because the person who put in the comment about the Wooten neighborhood, if for any reason you want to make a note about an area outside of the highlighted area, just put it at the perimeter and then let us know, because that's good feedback for us to get. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Peter. So we've got some more comments coming in. I'm going to come up here. Oh, that's me. Sorry, guys, that's a test point. We've got, oh, someone's logged in as me, because I did not say this. Someone is starting near 183 in Jamestown. So if that was your comment, maybe you can tell us where you're going to. That would be interesting for us to learn. So I'm going to keep refreshing my page to see what other comments are being dropped in. Oh, and I just realized Joanna is logged in as me. Okay, she's logging information in the background. That makes sense. So we also want to know if you're a bus rider. So can you tell us, if you are a bus rider, which bus routes you're using? And when you are coming through this focus area, are there any barriers that you want to let us know about in or around this area that we have highlighted? So for example, when you get on or off a bus, what is your experience like? Or if you're parking and walking to the bus stop, or maybe you're walking all the way from your home or place of employment to the bus stop, let us know if you experience any sidewalk gaps, any lighting issues, any concerns that we should be concerned about, because those type of things are things we would definitely want to keep track of. And what about if you're biking? We'd love to hear from our bikers in the audience. Let us know if you're biking, where are you parking your bike? Where, what are you connecting to? Are you riding your bike all the way to your place of employment? And we'd love to know if you are connecting to the North Lamar Transit Center. Let us know what it's like once you get there. So we've got a comment in here that says someone is only ever at the North Lamar Transit Center when they're transferring to another bus. So this is great because we do want to know if you're only coming to the station and you're not really ever leaving it. And that would be good for us to know, because then we can really understand. We have some audience members that will have some insight of what's needed at the transit center. Another comment at the transit center. Oh, it's not clicking, but that's okay. Okay, so someone is starting downtown. And thank you so much for putting it at the edge of the map. That's really useful to know. So someone's starting downtown and they're actually using either some sort of transit or maybe by car or by bike, they're coming up north and they're accessing this area. So thank you for letting us know. I'm going to refresh the page. So what about if you're walking in this area? We'd love to know if you have any issues or experience any barriers in the area. So, again, are there any sidewalk gaps? Are there any concerns of crossing major streets? Is it really loud when you're walking? Would you prefer shade? Those are the type of questions we'd love to hear about. Let's see, we've got a comment here. Okay, so there is limited ability to turn left from Georgian Acres to go south on Lamar. So if I'm reading between the lines, I assume this comment is from a resident that lives in Georgian Acres, and they are trying to find safe opportunities to turn left and go southbound on South Lamar. So that's really great feedback. Thank you so much. Let's
There,
see.
Brianna. We're
Hi.
getting a lot of comments with folks not able to use the map interface. Can you show dropping a pin and to demonstrate that? Because it looks like it needs an extra click to make that work, and I'm worried about that, folks.
Thank you, Lonnie. Yeah, so if you're joining us through the web browser, what we would like you to do is you click and hold. So I'm holding down my key this whole time, and I'm going to be dropping in within the boundary confined on the map. So you do have to drop your pin within this area. And if you're experiencing difficulty of dropping a pin out here, that may be why. So let's just say I want to drop my pin here. I did not do an extra click. I just released my mouse. And now I have the option to post now without a comment, or I can add a comment. And I have to click the blue button to post a comment. So let's make sure it got captured. Yeah, there's me. So if you're still experiencing difficulties, that's really good feedback for us to know, because this platform is what we'd like to be using in future workshops as well. So please let us know, and maybe you can join us over here in the chat function and let my tech team know of your origin and destinations, and we'll be able to punch those in for you guys. Now, we also love to hear about crossing under the highway. Is anyone currently connecting, walking, biking, driving under the highway here? And maybe your access point isn't North Lamar. Maybe you're coming under the highway if there's any other egresses under the highway north or south on 183. And what we're interested in hearing is your experience. What is it like for you? I do understand there were some recent sidewalk improvements in this area that will hopefully improve the pedestrian experience, but let us know, have you taken any of those new improvements? What is it like? And where are you going? How far are you walking? We'd love to hear, if your only way to access the North Lamar Transit Center, if it's through walking under the highway. So I'm gonna see if there's any more points. So let's see. Okay, I think I've read that one. I'm wondering, hold on, let me refresh my page real quick. Okay, we're getting a lot more points at the transit center. Let's see what people are saying. So we got a comment through the chat that says, as the transit center is currently designed, I find it difficult to transfer from the 801 to buses in the transit center. I'm blind and find it difficult to cut across the parking lot. This is amazing feedback. And let me just show you guys visually what this person is saying. So the 180 or the 801 bus route connects along these frontage roads. And you can see there's a bus stop symbol here. And so whether or not they're going northbound, which the bus stop would be on this side, or southbound, the bus stop is on this side, they're having to connect by foot around these beautiful trees to get into the transit center to connect to other local routes. So that's really great feedback. Thank you for whoever provided that information. We have another comment. This whole area is very hostile to pedestrians. I've had to cross 183 on bike and walking from the transit center, getting off 350, which is a local bus route, traveling to a friend's house. It needs better crossings desperately. We agree. Thank you for whoever put this in the chat. So that means that someone is coming to the transit center on a local bus route and trying to connect to friends' houses within the neighborhood. And so they are likely crossing 183 by foot or bike going southbound on this access road. And right now there is a sidewalk underneath 183, but it's not a great experience from a pedestrian walking experience. So thank you for whoever wrote that. Let's see. I take a bus from downtown to North Lamar Transit Center to connect to bus 383. That is great to hear. So someone's coming all the way from downtown. They're traveling north to the North Lamar Transit Center, and they are connecting to the local bus route 383. So that is a long, transit experience. And I think that really highlights that someone is using this site to connect to those local green bus routes that you guys saw when Jana was describing all of the various bus routes that came through this area. So thank you for that comment. We've got someone taking the 1 and 801, which are the high frequency bus routes that run along North Lamar, north and south. So that's really great to hear. And I read that comment. I'm going to refresh my page. And if someone can let me know how I'm doing on time, because I'll just keep reading comments. All right, we've got some people coming from the north. Let's see what they have to say.
Brianna, you're at 6:18, so we're just a couple minutes over.
Okay, great.
Doing
Over.
pretty well.
Meaning, sorry, a couple minutes over, meaning we're ready to move on?
Sure, but I mean, it's not terrible. You're doing a great job, and it feels like it's still on time.
Okay, thank you, Lonnie. So I really like this comment. Someone is starting at the Tech Ridge Park and Ride. So we're currently highlighting the North Lamar Transit Park and Ride, but we actually have a user coming from another parking ride. They're coming to the North Lamar Transit Center on the 801 and or the number 1. So this is some great feedback, because what this does is it kind of describes to us how people are connecting and using the whole system. And then what's really great is we can then understand someone's coming from the north, connecting at the North Lamar Transit Center and having to walk to the 801 or the 1 bus stop. So that connection will be really important in our design interventions. Let's see. Let me come over here to the west. I live south of 183 near here and have friends who live north near here. It's horrible at Lamar and 183. TxDOT needs to completely redo this place to work for humans. And actually, I just want to comment that this is an opportunity for us to work with TxDOT. We've been working with them and engaging them, and the orange line and the improvements that will be coming to this area from the rail improvements will be an opportunity to make this area a lot more robust all around. So we're really excited at the opportunity to solve some of your improvements that you've noted that it's just really dangerous, really horrible at this intersection. So thank you for that comment. Oh, great. We've got a comment about Vietnamese households that live in this area. If you are in need of Vietnamese interpretation, we have those services available. If you want to go in the lower right-hand side of your Zoom screen, you'll be able to find translation services. But in terms of the presentation, you're right. Everything is in English. So we do not have plans to translate at this time, other than if you would like audio translations. Okay, I think we're doing great. And just to reiterate, all of this feedback will be summarized. So thank you everyone who participated. And we'll be making sure that not only does the CAT Metro and Austin Transit Partnership see this summarized information, but this will also be available in the future upcoming equitable transit-oriented development. So these comments will also be aggregated during that project as well. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and hand it off to Peter to talk about station connection options. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Brianna. Thanks to everybody for all that great input and as part of that little exercise. And it's really helpful to us to better understand the site and some of the constraints so that we can use design to actually get some solutions. Okay, so next, Brianna, I'm going to talk a little bit about, we have some preliminary ideas about how to improve the connectivity throughout this area, and especially to connect the new light rail station to the rest of the transit center. So I'm going to go through those two options, and then we're going to break out into breakout groups, and we have the opportunity to answer questions and talk through them and get your feedback in detail. So go to the next. So you can see the existing transit center to the west of North Lamar. That's on the kind of the upper half of the slide. And then the new light rail station, which would be both for the orange and the blue lines. And that would be located in the middle of the North Lamar roadway. And there would be essentially a widened median that it would sit in. And then I'll go through how we are proposing to build connections from that light rail station platform to both the transit center and to the neighborhood. Next. So this slide, there's a lot on this slide, so give me a moment to go through it. So we are going to go through, and we'll go through each of these options in more detail on the subsequent slides. So option one, there are two options that we're going to talk about in terms of basically bridging over Lamar and connecting from the light rail station in the middle to the transit center in the surrounding neighborhood. So option one involves a pedestrian bridge that runs perpendicular to the station and bridges over those lanes. And there are ramps and stairs and elevators on either side, and I'll talk about how those all work. Option two is more in the form of basically an elongated path from the southern end of the platform back to a new bridge, essentially, that parallels 183, almost like an extension of the sidewalk to the east and the west. And that's how you would basically connect to and from the platform. Both options would include an at-grade connection to the north. So basically a sort of a widened sidewalk that runs from the northern end of the platform for the light rail station to Powell Lane. And so there would be a way to basically connect to the neighborhoods to the north, both on the east and the west side of Lamar, to the platform from that direction as well. Next. So let's talk about that at-grade connection first. So essentially, you can see the edge of the end of the platform for the light rail station on the left, and that number one would be essentially a long pathway that goes from the light rail station to the current signaled intersection where the light is and the crosswalks. So that's at number 2 on the slide. And then from that point, you could cross Lamar either side in a safe way and get to your destination. And connect to, if you're a cyclist, there would be bike paths on either side of Lamar as well, which you can see, and those are described essentially in the pink part of your, not the lighter beige, but the more salmony pink color on either side of Lamar. Go to the next. So, and this is an intersection that recently has had some improvements made to it. The city of Austin, through the corridor program, has installed a new traffic signal here, a new pedestrian refuge island in the middle of Lamar. So we're already, right, this intersection has gotten to be a little more pedestrian friendly. And so we want to take advantage of that connection in our design of the connection to the light rail station itself. So go back one just to go over that, see that again. So you can see that's that intersection with Powell Lane on the right. And you can see in the beige, that's that extended sidewalk connecting back to the light rail station. Okay, next. And the next. Okay, so as I said, that at-grade connection applies to either option, and then I'll go through option 1 and 2 separately. So option 1 would have a pedestrian bridge. That's what's highlighted, that's in that kind of purpley blue color. And you can see how it connects from the light rail station platform through stairs and elevators that would take you up to that pedestrian bridge, and you build across both east and west, to the west to the transit center and east to the neighborhood. And I'll go through in detail how that would work. But you can see the North Lamar Transit Center to the west at the top, and then how all that lays out along North Lamar. Next. So in detail, you can see number 1 is essentially the light rail platform, and then the stairs and elevators to connect up to the bridge itself. The pedestrian bridge is number 2, and that spans across the traffic lanes on North Lamar to the east and the west. And then on the west side, number 3, you'd have a few options for how to get back down and connect to the transit center facilities. One is through a ramp, so there would be a long ramp that goes to the south and then switches back. But there would also be an elevator and a set of stairs. So again, depending on your preference and your ability, you'd be able to choose which mode you like. And then you would essentially end up at a sidewalk that would connect to the other bus services and other facilities at the North Lamar Transit Center. We have an idea based on which connection we choose that could inform how future renovations to the transit center to make all this work together. On the east side, so taking the bridge the other way into the neighborhood, you would cross over the traffic lanes on that bridge, number 2, and then head down a ramp that I identify by that number 4 that would connect you down to the sidewalk on the east side of North Lamar. So it'd be about 2 to 3.5 minute transfer between the light rail platform to the North Lamar Transit Center facilities and relocated bus stops, and about 2 to 2.5 minutes to get to the sidewalk on the east side of Lamar. Next. So one thing, this is a cross section at the bottom. So you can see that that lowered roadway where the light rail platform would be located, and those dotted lines with the arrows represent, future trains. Then you see a series of stairs. There's an elevator in the background of that drawing that would take you up to the bridge, and the bridge goes across the traffic lanes and then comes back down on the other side through ramps, stairs, and elevator on the west, and ramp on the east. The images above is just to sort of get the ideas flowing about what that pedestrian bridge could look like, right? We haven't designed it yet. We're still a ways away from that, but we had the opportunity to make something that's beautiful and something that people want to be on and is pleasurable to use. So just want to sort of kind of get the ideas flowing about, what that could look like. And so those are some images of some creatively designed pedestrian bridges from other cities around the world. Next. So if you think about the journey and how you would move from on this option, the dotted lines basically show those movements from the platform to the neighborhood. So either to the north, to the connection at Powell Lane, or to the east on a bridge connecting to the east side of North Lamar. Those are those dashed lines. And then the solid line shows the movement from the platform, the light rail platform, to the other facilities, the bus facilities and bus stops at the North Lamar Transit Center. And you can see up at the top and the bottom a cross section of how those movements would work as well. Next. Okay, so that was all option one. And going to option two, again, you've got the light rail platform in the middle. You've got the at-grade sidewalk, walkway going to Powell Lane to the north. And then to the south, you'd have a sloped path that gently slopes up on that purple line that's to essentially a bridge that crosses North Lamar, basically at the level of the adjacent sidewalks. So this route does kind of double duty. It connects you both to the transit center, but it also connects you to the existing sidewalk network. So the idea is that we build a separate bridge there that would get you across the sort of more generous way to get across those traffic lanes. Go to the next. So this is again a detail of how that would work. And you can see there's kind of a fork at the end, the southern end of that sloped path. So you can either go to the west to the transit center or to the east into the neighborhood. And then it would connect to a crosswalk at the frontage roads, either on the west or the east side. The benefit of this is that there are no elevators, and it's a very gentle slope path, but you do have to cross the frontage road when you get to your to the frontage road on either side. So again, pros and cons of both schemes, and we'll talk about that in a second. There would be signals, traffic signals, and at the crosswalks at the frontage road, so to make that a really safe way to cross the street. And we think this is about a 3.5 minute, so it's a little bit longer to get from the light rail station to the bus facilities in this relocated location at the transit center. Okay, next. And again, some ideas about what that long sloped path up to the new bridge would look like. Again, very gentle, low slope, so great for people with all abilities. Even not as steep as a ramp, even much less steep than that. And again, we can bring some really great design to this to make it something that's pleasurable to be on. Next. Again, the journey, just in terms of the time, you've got the dotted line, which shows the movement to the north to Powell Lane, and then the solid line that shows the pathway to get from the light rail platform to the bus facilities in the transit center. Okay, so again, just to summarize the two options, we've got the option one, which is the pedestrian bridge, which is probably the more direct route, the shortest amount of time, but it does require elevators and a greater elevation change on both sides, both on the platform end and on the North Lamar Transit Center end. Option two is a slightly longer journey, so it takes a little bit longer. It's a longer path, but again, no elevators, very gentle path, and connection to the existing sidewalk at 183. So, one of maybe the ability to enhance just general circulation through the neighborhood. So again, both good, both pros and cons to both options. And both options, just a reminder, would include that connection to the north to Powell Lane. And when we get into breakout sessions, we can answer all your questions and get into these options with greater detail, as well as some other questions too. Next. Okay, turning it back to Brianna or to Lonnie, I guess.
Lonnie.
Well, let's see, before we slide over, I know that people have been putting questions into the Q&A and those are being answered. Are there any of those that we wanted to highlight before we make the jump, or is that something we're going to talk about in the breakout rooms?
A lot of these can be addressed in the breakout room, especially
Okay.
the ones that haven't been answered yet.
Okay. Well, let's see. It would be great if you could go ahead and throw the link to our breakout rooms into the chat as we start to discuss this. So in the last round of community design workshops we hosted, we had a very large RSVP and it prevented some people from joining us. So we went back to our original format where we hosted this forum as a webinar. And then we're going to jump over to the breakout group discussion. So there's a link going into your chat now. We're going to wind up leaving this room and moving to the other room. When we get there, we will help everybody get broken up into 4 different breakout rooms. Our goal is to end by 7:30 for sure. If you need Spanish translation or closed captioning or Vietnamese, we will address that on the other side. So again, please go ahead and click on that link and join us in the Zoom meeting for our breakout group. And when you're there, we'll actually have mics open, chat open. It'll be an open forum for discussion. So again, take a look at that link. It says, please join us in a few minutes. Well, I'll meet you there on the other side.